and welcome to the Harry Man Show number 53. We have the hilarious Tim Baltes. Is that correct, Baltes?
Baltis, as long as it's not battles, that's probably the worst one I've gotten from a telemarketer where they switched up letters.
Nice,
So I'll take Balts any day.
nice. And you'll find Tim on his, I think it's hilarious Instagram channel, Timbo from Kino. I have a blast watching his drum covers and his comedy sketches. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much for having me on, Dustin.
Yeah, like I said, Tim, it's everything you do is precise, but you have like a comic relief with it. What started that whole overall idea for you?
I mean, really, it's just been my personality. Something I talk about on a ton of podcasts is just authenticity and how we apply that to social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the kid growing up where my dad would put like an Ace Ventura VHS in the TV, and I would be, talking out of my butt like Ace Ventura one day. And then, when I was 3, my uncle, my dad's brother, actually got me a drum set because he's a drummer. But he didn't get it necessarily because I think he wanted me to be a drummer. I think he got it to tick off my dad because I played it so loud that they closed my bedroom door until I broke all the heads on it. And then they opened the door. So, it's just a balance of my personality. And you'll see that balance in the content too. So, in the morning I'll post a drum video, and usually in the evening, then I'll post like a crazy karaoke or a funny drum video. Or recently people have been sending me boxes and boxes of food from around the world where I'm just like trying these insane things out and rating them on several different scales that make no sense.
Yeah. So all jokes aside, you're an excellent drummer too. I don't want that to slide by. I mean, your technique and your playing is more importantly, but you're an awesome drummer as well.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I've been really fortunate. And all the work I've gotten through or at all has been through Instagram, whether it's the Disney stuff, movies, Fox, video games, slot machine soundtracks. It all came through Instagram. So I've been really fortunate in that way too.
So I want to back up. So what age were you starting to play a kit that was given to you?
So I got a kit on my 3rd birthday.
Wow.
I didn't really start playing though until I was 15. So I started piano lessons at 8, bass and playing in like punk bands at 12. Started playing out that year when I was 12 years old. Guitar at 13, and then finally I was playing with some dudes when I was 15. And I was playing bass at the time with the guys, and we couldn't find a drummer. And my buddy Billy was like, well, you can kind of play drums. Figure it out. Go buy a kit, Tim. So I went to school the next day. I was like, just distraught talking to a buddy of mine in homeroom. And I was like, this kid, Tony Ambrosini, classic Kenosha name where it's all Italians or, Yugoslavians here. So he's one of the Italians. I'm one of the Yugoslavians. I say, Tony, how am I going to do this? I can't afford a drum set. I'm 15 years old. The only money I get is for cutting my grandma's frickin' grass. And he's like, Tim, I got you. He says, Tim, I'm going to sell you a drum set for $10.
Wow.
And sure enough, I bought it the next day from him. I put it together and I played that with this kind of hardcore band for a while. And that turned into one thing turned into another. And now here I am over a decade and a half later, still focusing on drums.
Nice. And did that start your obsession with like collecting and kind of teching with drums as well, or did that come later down the road?
I think the teching thing came right away because it was, I had a $10 drum set, a CB drum set in wine red, the
Nice.
ugliest, least cool drum set you've ever heard of in your life. And I had to make it sound as good as I could.
Mm-hmm.
I think the benefit also was that me and a really close friend of mine had a recording studio at the time in his basement. And so not only was I worried about what do drums sound like to the ear, but what do they sound like under mics?
Mm-hmm.
So I was experimenting with, particularly in metal bands, it's like, how do I get that triggered sound without using triggers?
Yeah.
So like I was using Danmar at the time, made a literal like steel patch you could put on your bass drum.
Yeah.
They always fell off though. You remember that too?
Yeah.
So I had like duct tape all over holding
Yep.
this freaking patch on. And then it's like, well, now it just sounds like, deer hooves, dancing on a drum.
Yeah.
So then we made a sub kick, these microphones that are supposed to pick up low frequencies. But, normally you'd see a speaker about this big. We took 2x4s and put a freaking 15-inch bass speaker on a frame and shoved it in front of the kick drum to get the low end out of it. reverse wired it out to a quarter inch, jack, and it worked.
Yeah.
We always made it work, and so the teching thing really started there, and it kind of flourished, especially when I quit playing in bands. 2016, when I got really sick, I just kind of started focusing on this studio stuff because it was something where if I had a day where I felt well, I could sit down here, everything's set up. I don't have to move anything. All I have to do is literally grab a pair of sticks and sit down.
Yeah.
So the last 5 years now has just been totally and I mean completely focused on this stuff here, the recording stuff.
Nice. And then when you were younger, going to recording studios, was that a lot of fun for you, or were you collecting microphones as well, or that's kind of before the software thing kind of came? Were you guys using like multi-track recorders and messing with that stuff?
Sure. There's a story. So when I was taking bass guitar lessons, I remember my first, or no, yeah, well, all my teaching was at this one shop in town, a little local music shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up to the guitar room where the guitars were for sale, and I said to the salesman, "Well, I want to start recording, but I don't know where to start." And he's like, "All right, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to sell you my 4-track recorder for cash out in the parking lot." And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is sweet."
So
like
Tascam?
It was, yeah, a little Tascam 424.
Yeah.
So it's and you see all it's a little cassette tape recorder, and it's got all these knobs and faders, and gizmos and gadgets that you can move around. And I'm like 12, 13 years old. Or I guess probably 13 at this point, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is freaking cool. I'm gonna record music.
Yeah.
So and then I had to figure out, well, how the heck do I turn this into an MP3? So now we had a freaking Windows 98 computer. I had to run the headphone jack out to a little 1/8 inch, like headphone male, and I plugged it into the pink mono jack on my computer, turned it into like a really crappy sounding MP3, but I had music. Yeah. So this obsession started there. I recorded a local band at one point with guys that, when I 13, 14, guys that I went to play with in bands when I was 20, 21, and even on. So that was really, really, really special for me, and not just to have this introduction to recording, but this introduction to these other people that became very close friends and colleagues as we kept making music as we grew up.
Yeah, it's definitely a big science to it, and it kind of just pulls you in and never get really out of it.
No, oh gosh. I think, we talk about gas. I'm sure you know the term gas from working at a guitar store.
Oh, yeah.
Gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah, it never stops.
And so, it never stops. But I worked at a music go-round here in the store system, which includes Kenosha, Wisconsin, and then Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for 5 years. Got me through college. It was a great job. It's a great company to work for. That's where the gas came in as far as for vintage drums. I bought my first vintage drum set in 2009. It was a 1965 Ludwig Super Classic, so the bigger drums, a 22-inch bass drum, 13-inch tom, and a 16-inch floor tom in champagne sparkle.
Oh, nice.
And I paid. It was like it had some water damage and all sorts of stuff, but it was cooler than heck. Mm-hmm. And so I paid $200 for it.
Oh, that's a good deal. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great deal. Those drums now, even in that shape, would be $1,500, $1,800. And I just became obsessed. I was just, it was so cool. And I've, over this time period, the last 15 years of playing drums, I think I've owned about 200 or 300 drum sets, another 200 to 400 snare drums, just tons and tons, just going in and out, whether I'm buying to sell or buying to try or buying to keep. And I finally, I know we talk about how gas never ends, but truly, I think I'm finally to a point where with drums, I really don't need anything, though. We can talk about this at some point. Part of my work is consulting with drum companies. Mm-hmm. And so I do have more drums coming, of course. But if I didn't, have those connections, I wouldn't need another drum ever again.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you. It's just my problem is I don't let things go. I just keep collecting.
That's a big problem, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean that's probably like I'll be 70 or 80 one day, just like some weird reality I have to let it go or something. But I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? I think I was listening to one of the newer Drumeo Gab podcasts
Uh-huh.
with Todd Zuckerman, who incredible drummer, plays with sticks, but also well known as a collector as well. And he was talking about his 5 favorite, you know, incredible snare drums that he's owned.
Mhm.
And he basically, he was talking about how at one point in his life he bought this really expensive, crazy, 80s kit by Sonar made in Germany for thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And basically his point to this story was that, like, we got one go round, to do this thing, to live. And so if this is your passion, if drums are your passion and you have this dream instrument that you've always wanted,
Mhm.
save the money, get the thing you want, and play the thing you love. And I,
Yeah.
I really believe in that. I think some people tend to go wide with their drum collections. I know guys who have 150 sets.
Mhm.
Like, what are you doing? Well, bless them. I love them. They're my friends. Bless them.
Yeah.
But you know, at this point, if I only had these 3 Ludwig classic maple drums, it's a little kit that I modified in every which way that I wanted, so it does exactly what I want. And if I just had, like, my sugar percussion 14x6 cedar snare and like my 6.5 Black Beauty that has my initials painted on it, I wouldn't need another drum. I
Yeah.
wouldn't need another drum. And that's so for me, I talk about this, whether it's platonic relationships with people, romantic relationships with people, or the relationship with your instrument. For me, instead of going wide, the older I get, the more I want to go deep with an instrument.
Yeah, and I mean this is a compliment. That's also a big sign of maturity too. And you
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, I don't think I'm there yet because I'm always kind of like fiending for the next thing. But yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. It's just you want to build a relationship with that one item for years to
Yeah.
come. Yeah.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I don't mean to circle back so much, but I'm a Lubbock guy myself. But when did you start to develop a taste in Pacific drums, like vintage drums? Was that something right away, or something kind of came a little later?
Sure. So, for me, balancing this sort of vintage sound with modern playability has been something I've been playing around with ever since I quit playing. At the end of my sort of heavy music days, I was playing like technical death metal,
Hmm.
and so, again, huge speed, lots of crazy fills, and hands and feet going every which way. But I at one point when I was in my early 20s, I got in a motorcycle accident. Finally, realized that I wasn't immortal, and and
Another
then
sign of
so
maturity.
yeah. So I decided. At the time, I was your quintessential death metal drummer. I was over 300 pounds, big frickin' beard, shaved head,
Right.
and so I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to try to look out for my health.
Mhm.
I lost 90 pounds over a summer, over 3 months, on the old school chicken and broccoli diet plus
Oh, nice,
exercise.
nice.
And then further, I lost in total about 135 pounds. Um, and after that weight loss, I got a friend who he plays drums for Owl City. His name's Gabe Hagen, great drummer,
Mhm.
hilarious dude. And we have this theory about being portly when you're drumming. And so portly fellows, when you're drumming, there is a certain, no pun intended, heaviness that comes with your groove. And in the
Yeah.
same way, the last gig, I think that for me, there is a certain fat-based lubricant that comes to your joints when you are a portly gentleman. I miss it. I miss it because the last death metal gig I had, uh, for the next 3 days afterwards, every joint up every single finger was throbbing.
Yeah.
So I told these dudes, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is insane.
Hmm.
And so I've only taken like 5 drum lessons in the course of 16 years.
Oh wow.
Some more for fun. I took one with Matt Halpern from Periphery before they got famous. Um, I took more of my lessons focused on technique. So, like, there's a guy who teaches at the local state university here. He teaches at the Milwaukee Conservatory of Music. I studied with one of his kind of protege students. I studied with another local lore, kind of legend dude here at one point, and all of these sorts of legend, or I guess lessons rather, focused on how do I hold a stick, how do I throw a stick in such a way that I'm not going to hurt, I'm not going to have this pain after a gig,
Hmm.
and so I still focus on that. DVDs too. Again, I'm not necessarily focusing on, like, I love Gene Hoglan's DVD, the original Atomic Clock DVD, and
Yep.
I don't play that stuff anymore. I don't even have a double pedal.
Oh
But
no.
when I watch his DVD, it's like, how do we loosen our wrists? He's got these great exercises in that DVD. I highly recommend it. And Tommy Igoe's
Yeah.
Great Hands for a Lifetime, another quintessential tool if you want to try to play drums not just for a few decades but for the entire span of your adult life.
Hmm.
um, so that kind of really taught me the importance, not just the motorcycle accident of feeling my mortality there, but then the subsequent gig where I had all this pain and saying, well, I'm not going to be able to use this body for 3, 4, 5 decades if I don't treat it well.
Yeah.
And these lessons keep popping up. I talk about my illness all the time. Is this happened in 2016, and I basically my body quit making testosterone,
Huh.
and we didn't figure that out till 2019, and I got on treatment starting in early 2020. I've been on basically they call it testosterone replacement therapy. So in the same way that a diabetic shoots insulin into their stomach, I'm
Uh-huh.
shooting testosterone into my stomach for the rest of my life.
Uh-huh.
And subsequently, in the same way that I can't drive a motor, I shouldn't drive a motorcycle, and jump a motorcycle poorly or whatever, go into a pothole and almost die. And then I shouldn't be drumming with giant sticks trying to blast with a Evans hybrid head at 300 BPM for a half hour. Um, and I shouldn't be filling my pie hole with all sorts of assorted chips and all these food review types items. So it's like even with this testosterone thing, I have to like be so careful about what I eat, when I eat. So it's just to say that this lesson of taking care of my body has just gone so far, and I think it just comes back to this message I have that it's like, you gotta, again, we got one shot. Play your freaking drums and
Mhm.
enjoy it while we're here, and whatever your goals are, and we don't have to have substantial goals. I never set out to play drums on recordings for Disney or for Grammy winning freaking movie soundtracks or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I do this because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I just want I always want to push that message home that, like, if you're not doing this to put a smile on your own face, throw your drums out, ship them to my home. I will give them to someone who will smile when they play them.
Yeah.
So
And that's one thing I want to circle back to is when I watch your Instagram feed, it just makes me want to hop on my drums and play some of those songs that I grew up with as well as you did. Like I shared that Minus the Bears song with you, and it just brought back like when I first heard that song, and you kind of just make it fun. It makes me want to do it more. So you're definitely showcasing the fun of it.
100%, and I think that's what it is too, is, even though, yeah, sometimes I'm going to post like my drum stuff where it's like, okay, here's one of my drumless tracks that I
Mhm.
made and I'm going to play a groove or some crazy fill or whatever over it.
Uh-huh.
But so much more often now, I'm like the big thing for me right now is like 90s music, which is like the music that I, grew up listening to when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Same here.
Before that, I was playing music that I listened to when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Um, and don't expect me to play the death metal from 16 to 22. That's not going to happen. But you know what? I got through a lot of good music from when I was a kid. I'm happy with that.
Mhm.
And working backwards through that stuff. So that's it's not just about entertainment and having fun for myself, but there's an educational element there too.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
how many drummers are you going to see playing over a fastball song? or a Sheryl Crow song on Instagram.
That's
There's
discipline.
not a yeah, there's not a lot of drummers out there who want to do that thing.
No.
Um, but there's a way, if we talk about this bridging of vintage and modern, there's a way to do it where, uh, I'm fortunate enough to be acquaintances now with Michael Urbano, who played drums on "If It Makes You Happy" by Sheryl Crow, among thousands of other amazing songs.
Yeah.
And Michael is one of these guys who he's a drum collector. I actually have uh, the magazine issue he was in of Not So Modern Drummer
Oh,
magazine, where he
nice.
talks about his collection, which ranges drums that were made almost 100 years ago till now.
Mhm.
And so it's about, okay, let's set up these drums that are really freaking old, that were here before my grandparents were alive, and I'm going to put modern heads on them. I'm going to tune them the way I like. Maybe I'm going to put some modern cymbals with them, or vintage voiced cymbals with them, which is usually what I choose.
Mhm.
And so now we have, even in the gear, we have a modern and a vintage balance. And then in the playing, based on the song, like if we go back to the Sheryl Crow song, if I'm going to cover that, I'm going to just groove, and not just, I'm going to hit the drums in a way that kind of feels in between what Michael would have done 20 plus years ago and what I would do now, to bring that forward to sound relevant to what
Yeah.
people are doing, groove wise, tone wise, production wise. And so that's kind of this, it brings in this educational element even further.
Yeah. And yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to actually do that. And we live in a time where everything's short and flashy. So when you see guys do like that, I actually have a lot more respect. Maybe that's just me maturing, but I look for that. And maybe more so artists would too when they're hiring somebody. But that
Mm.
brings me to like the recording side of it. You said you do the drumless tracks. How did that start for you?
So I started making these. I make these things that are basically practice tracks that you can use when you're drumming, instead of using a metronome. Metronome, you got the click going,
Hmm.
and that's only fun for so long.
Hmm.
And what I think is even more important is, how do you play groove? How do you play fills? How do you can arrange a song, not just around a click, but around a melody, around a rhythm? And by creating these drumless tracks, you're able to do that. So it started out as, I would sit down at my computer, I'd grab a sample I liked, and then I'd add guitar underneath that, bass underneath that, extra keys underneath that, and leave the drums alone, export it out at like 10, 15 minutes, loop this stuff, export it out at like 10, 15 minutes playing time. And then I'd be able to just, experiment over these things, practice over these things. And for me, that was a really powerful tool. And then other people were like, hey, this is really powerful, we want it too.
Yeah.
So I put it up on Bandcamp. The first two volumes are actually, they're not very lengthy, because it's an intensive process to sit down and track all these instruments.
Hmm.
Um, so volume three, I switched over to sample based music, and now instead of being able to crank out, uh, you know, 6 tracks, 15 tracks over the course of a week, now I'm able to crank out 100,
Oh wow.
125 tracks. So now in the 7 volumes I have online, I have over 600 tracks available for free on Bandcamp
Oh wow.
that are like just super fun to play over. Other people love to download them. Like I said, they're free. Donations are helpful because it helps me to continue making those things.
Hmm.
But by having them up for free, now anybody can use them, anybody can download them, and now you have copyright free music
Yeah.
that you can go out and make the Instagram videos with. A lot of people have the problem of the copyright police on Instagram, or even in TikTok sometimes, taking down their videos, and it's like, oh man, I worked so hard on this video.
Yeah.
Now with this drumless track thing, you can have 600 different videos and know that you're not going to have an issue with them.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of, it's just kind of a way for me to give back and to offer something unique to the community.
Well, that's awesome. You're doing it like that, and I think that's gonna be a bigger thing because as YouTube kind of clamps down, I think that drumless tracks are gonna be a lot bigger. I've been experimenting making my own too, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna go through your catalog. What's the best place to sound camp?
Bandcamp, SoundCamp that's when SoundCloud buys out Bandcamp. Hasn't happened yet. You must be in the loop. No, if you go to my Instagram, Timbo from Keno, Timbo from Keno, Keno, it's the link in my bio. If you search Tim Baltes, Baltes, drumless tracks on Google, it'll pop right up, and yeah, it'll take you to my Bandcamp, and you can get them all there, download them, stream them, whatever you want to do with them.
Now I want to talk about some of the gear you use. What's your go-to like head choice now for doing tracking? And are you tracking all in the room you're in now?
Yeah, this is actually my mom's basement. This is where I
Oh.
track. I had planned to get out of my mom's basement, and then my balls broke, so that's why I'm still here at 31. Hello. So, I'm generally down here. This is a great room, even though it's a really unconventional room. I've got like 7-foot ceilings to the acoustic tile. It goes up about another foot, where I have some of the tiles taken out to let some of that air disperse a little bit.
Mhm.
And then it's only about 10-ish feet wide, but it's 40 plus feet long. So that's where I get my room sound from. I have a room mic way back by my freaking treadmill, 40 feet back there.
Yeah, I noticed that
And
you have a big ambient sound in your videos too.
yeah, I think that's something special. I think a lot of people now, especially on social media, ignore the importance of a room mic.
Mhm.
And so that's why I try to bring that kind of thing back, because it's unique and I think it's special. It gives your character or I'm sorry, rather your recording more character.
Let me ask one
Um,
quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but how do you feel
yeah.
about like modulations like an EAD10 compared to like individual mics? Well, I know it's a big
So
argument now, but I just want to see how you felt about that.
So I'm part of this group called the Indie Drum Collective, started by Aaron Tate, who played drums with Minus the Bear,
Uh-huh.
and has tons of other drummers. And whether it's Aaron or any of these other industry vets, so many of them are using that EAD10 to make drum covers.
Hmm.
I think in that context of making music online, it is a great tool if you don't want to invest $50 to $100,000 in recording equipment,
Yeah.
and then have to learn how to use it. Um, so if you just want to get up and go and make covers, it's perfect for that. The
Hmm.
other application it's good for is Gun Buns. Gunnar Olson, I believe is his last name, on Instagram. Gunner's an incredible drummer. He's played with everyone from Jucifer to Bruce Springsteen.
Hmm.
So great drummer. And he uses one oftentimes in recording in addition to other microphones. So now it becomes an effects microphone, which I think is perfect in that setting. A lot of times we hear about the knee mic or the fat mic, which is a microphone that you kind of put over your bass drum here
Hmm.
that can replace a room mic. You add effects to it, you blow it up with compression, some distortion, whatever you want,
Hmm.
and now it kind of adds certain character to your entire drum sound once you add plus processing. And this EAD10 can have the same power there.
Hmm.
So I don't ever try to knock any equipment, maybe CB drums, but that's about it. But I don't try to knock any equipment, and so
Uh,
I think if it's good enough for the dude who's playing on Bruce Springsteen songs, it's good enough for me.
oh yeah, I'm not trying to put it down either.
Yeah.
I just don't know. If, some people have objection to how simplified things are getting. Just like when Pro Tools rolled around, the guys that were tracking reel to reels kind of got depressed. But I could I could see the evolution of that kind of getting easier and easier for drum covers to come along. So
Yeah, and that's what it is. I think it's a perfect tool for someone who wants to make drum covers.
mm.
I think if you're going to record with a band, I think you're probably going to want a little bit more. But there's guys who literally have made platinum records on an iPhone. So like who am I to judge?
And I was going to ask you, what's your go-to software?
Sure. So I'm a big proponent of Logic.
Oh,
I
nice.
know it has there's a high cost to the entry point, which can be just having the Mac computer system
Hmm.
itself. Um, so I understand that, but I love Logic because it's so much easier than any other DAW, and I can do all my editing in it. I teach this as a kind of part of a course to students online, which is how to economize making drum covers,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's for YouTube or Instagram or anything else. And the reason I talk about Logic is because when it's combined with several other factors, you can go from making one song in an hour, one cover in an hour, to making 4 or 10 even in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Logic is, it's so simple, it's so powerful, and it economizes the workflow because we live in a world where, unfortunately, quantity of output is more important than quality.
Mm-hmm.
So I've created this kind of workflow that, through the integral use of Logic, that it just, yeah, it's the best off for that sort of thing, for social media, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm actually I'm late to the party on that, but Logic, what I'm using as well, or trying to learn how to use Logic. So I completely agree compared to using Pro Tools right now. Pro Tools is a little bit hard for someone to jump right into.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is, I don't, is there a feature? I think I've heard that Studio One, Persona Studio One, allows you to drag video in. I don't know if Pro Tools will let you drag video in, will it?
I heard it. I think the newer one does, but they have like a
Okay.
subscription based thing where you like different
Yeah.
tiers. So
Well, and that's so expensive too. It's like, with Logic now, you can pay $200, you
mhm,
get lifetime support on it.
mhm.
For me, I'd rather do that. And it, again, I can go into my Finder, or if you have Windows, your Windows, whatever the heck they call that, the crap with your folders and stuff. That's
Uh,
a technical term. But you go in there, you drag your video file right into Logic, drop it. Now you're able to sync your audio up and export videos right there. You're off to the races in seconds versus minutes or hours.
yeah, and I think you're right. The biggest investment with Logic is just the Mac itself. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and I stand by Mac. Bigger than that's kind of what I've used, but I think Mac is kind of trending the ways with recording, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask is the artwork you have in your bass drum. Is that something you do yourself, or do you have someone do that for you?
I'll tell you, I wish I had that kind of talent, but I don't. So, like, if you look, if you're watching the video, you'll see there's a head back here that was painted. And on my bass drum in front of me, there's a head that's painted, and I have racks of these painted heads behind the computer here. And so, all these painted heads, unfortunately, I am inept with visual talent. So I have a gal. Mainly, I have one gal in Texas who paints all of them. This is one of her heads. The one down below is. And her name's Megan. Megan Palin, Megan underscore MEGAN underscore Palin, PAILIN on Instagram.
Hmm.
And she's done 99% of my drum heads. Corey Strange has done a drum head for me. And Zoe Thickenskin over in the UK has done a drum head for me. And my friend's teenage daughter has done like 3 drum heads for me, which were freaking rad to have a
Nice.
kid do these drum heads. So I have all sorts of different heads. And for me, it's just a way to differentiate. When we're on Instagram, uh, so oftentimes you're just going to see a logo head, a black logo head, a white logo head.
Hmm.
And for me, it's just having this extra visual element that just adds something special. We're creating art with sound, so why not add the visual art element back to kind of create this all-encompassing
Hmm.
experience,
Hmm.
for a consumer. That's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, it definitely gives personality to the kit. But before I let you go, I know you're a busy guy, but what would be the best recordings, the best place to check out some of your previous work with Disney and soundtracks?
So there's not a lot online yet. I do need to work on getting a little page on my website set up for this. If you want to see my work, the best place is always going to be my Instagram. I'm posting 1 to 2 videos there every single day.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
consistent.
yeah, yeah. And so I always recommend checking out my Instagram. I'm also available. If you search my name on YouTube, I've had like 3 different YouTube channels in the past, and they just,
Digest drums or drums with
yeah,
digest?
drum. I had Drum Digest, which you can also find on Facebook. Both of which are dead channels, but there's some content on there from years ago of stuff I did.
Hmm.
But really, like, Instagram is great. Otherwise, I'm always available at email, timbdrums@gmail.com, and I'm always here to help if anybody has questions about drum stuff.
All right. And besides the consulting, are you also giving lessons as well?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I do consult. I've been working with Franklin Drums, formerly Risen Drums on the rebrand now for the last 9-10 months.
Oh, nice.
Um, I've been working with Firehouse Drums. I'm looking forward to working more with him in the near future. I've worked with Index Drums in the past, and I've even hung out with Pearl and worked with them, some of the guys there too. So it's been really fun to do that sort of work. So if anybody out there needs, 2 cents on a drum related project, I'm more than willing to talk about those things. And lessons are also a big part of what I do, whether it's to talk about the way I play, the way I record, or the way I put my content out to the world. Content marketing. I'm always available for that stuff too.
And I bet and your handle is Timbo from Kino, correct?
Timbo from Aquino, yeah. uh, Timbo from Keno, short for Kenosha. Timbo from Keno
Oh, that
on
makes sense.
Instagram.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
I put that together. All right, I learned something today. All right.
There you go. There you go.
And another question is, what were your main comedy like influences? I think we were just almost the same age, but I guess you went to. I've been hearing a lot of Adam Sandler and kind of like, you know,
As far as comedy,
yeah,
oh gosh, yeah. I think for me it started with Jim Carrey.
yeah, I can hear
Uh, I
that
was
too.
I was late to the game with Adam Sandler, but I loved, Billy Madison and all those kind of movies along that
Mhm.
earlier timeline with him. Um, Happy Gilmore too. That, oh my God, Happy Gilmore. But it's I have such a wide variety
Mhm.
of influences, and a lot of people tend to say that like, oh man, you must love Monty Python. And I'm probably gonna tick off a lot of people right now, but I can't watch Monty Python.
I don't
I
think I've
just
ever.
like can't. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out.
It's too
I
dry.
love. Well, but people think I'm that guy. They think you're the Monty Python guy, so I must be pretty dry too. Um, but yeah, I think it's that. Tim Conway. I had, if anybody remembers these Dorf, the Dorf VHS tapes, like Dorf Goes Fishing, which is actually, if you look up Dorf Goes Fishing, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Uh, which were these, Tim Conway did a bunch of comedy shows in the 70s, 80s. And they were these tapes where he would, do Dorf Goes Golfing, Dorf Goes Fishing, whatever. And it'd be like 45 minutes of just sketch. Um, it's hilarious. It's
Yeah.
so funny. It's worth looking up on YouTube if you have any interest in fishing or where my comedy mind comes from,
Mhm.
because he also used this sort of uh, hyper accentuated Midwestern accent.
Mhm.
So, obviously when I'm talking to you, I'm not talking in the Timbo voice, but if I was talking in the Timbo voice, it would kind of sound like Tim Conway, like, yeah, hello there, here we are, we're about to drum set, we're gonna do a
Yeah.
little toodly do, and
Yeah.
so that's totally a Tim Conway move. And I generally aim for the other part I aim for is like family friendly.
Mhm.
Because I know, you were saying before we started, like, oh, me and my girlfriend love watching your content.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I aim for, is like, it's not just something for the drummer, but it's something that people can share whether you like drums or not.
Yeah.
So like there's actually a family out in Seattle who regularly watch my videos. The kids, the mom, the dad, everybody. And so that's like so special to me
Mhm.
that I've been able to create a platform where all of these people are able to enjoy it. So that's the other part of it, is just, even though it's silly and sometimes it feels over the top, and maybe I throw a slight innuendo in there once in a while, it's still very family friendly, and anybody, regardless of background or interest, can just get a freaking kick out of the funny stuff.
Yeah, and please keep doing them. But once again, I don't want to take light off your talent as a drummer. That's main. I know that's the main focus, but yeah, you're both keep doing
Let's be real. Let's be real. Potato chips are the focus of my life.
No, I enjoy it all. That's my point. Is that it's just
Thank you.
great. It's just great what you're doing. I'm a huge compliment to you. But yeah, I'll share the links to your drumless tracks and for your lessons to your Instagram. I really want to thank you for coming on. I know we're a new channel, and we're gonna have a lot of cool stuff coming. But thanks a lot, Tim.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you for having me on, and I hope everybody enjoyed the listen. And if you have any questions about potato chips, drums, broccoli, or sausage sticks, I will be able to answer all of those questions. Don't hesitate to reach out.
And vintage drums.
Maybe those two.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Tim. Talk to you soon.